Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a TV ad in the San Diego mayor's race is causing a stir in a political corruption case.
And San Diegans gather at Qualcomm Stadium to remember Junior Seau. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Joanne Farian.
And I'm Dwayne Brown.
A public memorial for Junior Seau is just getting underway at Qualcomm Stadium. The Chargers are calling it a celebration of his life. 60,000 people were expected tonight. They began showing up at Qualcomm earlier this afternoon and shared their memories of the Chargers Hall of Famer.
I'm here just to pay tribute. Junior was a great man. And it's been a heavy, hard week. I can't even think about him without crying. I was friends with him and golfed with him and hung out with him several places. And outside of football, he was a great person.
Everybody has that one person, whether you're a sports fan or maybe it's a movie star, and Junior Seau was that for me.
He's family to all of us. I mean, for the older community, he's their son, and to like me and my brother, he's a brother to us.
Seau committed suicide on May 2nd, fueling speculation that athletes who suffer repeated head trauma are at a greater risk for depression. The Seau family still has not said whether his brain will be donated to study that possibility.
Bribery charges have now been filed against 4 Sweetwater Union High School district officials, former Superintendent Jesus Gandara, current trustees Arlie Ricasa and Pearl Quinones, as well as former trustee Greg Sandoval, are accused of fostering a pay-to-play culture where lavish gifts were given by construction executives in exchange for school contracts. One of the contractors has pleaded guilty in the case.
Some of the defendants in the Sweetwater case are upset about an ad in the San Diego mayor's race for District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis. The ad mentions charging school officials with corruption. The attorney for the defendant says the ad could influence potential jurors. He asked for a gag order on the ad, but the judge said he wasn't comfortable doing that. The Dumanis campaign says there are no plans to change or stop the ad. Another political ad may have cost a doctor her post on a state panel. LaDonna Porter appeared in an ad against Proposition 29, which would create a new tobacco tax. Governor Jerry Brown removed her and 5 others from a committee which identifies toxic substances. All of them had been appointed by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
A third suspect has been arrested in the killing of a Camp Pendleton Marine's wife. Dorothy Maragallino will be arraigned Monday on charges related to the death of 22-year-old Brittany Kilgore. Public records show Maragallino owns the Fallbrook home where the other suspects lived. The home is near Kilgore's apartment. Investigators have said nothing about a motive for the murder.
The head of the Marine Corps is planning an ethical stand-down after a series of embarrassing incidents ranging from Marines urinating on the bodies of insurgents to Facebook comments criticizing the president. Marine commanders will first get trained sometime next month. A stand-down for all Marines will follow that training session.
Next week, San Diegans will get a chance to voice their opinions about a $150 a year fee for fire protection in rural areas. The State Board of Forestry and Fire Protection will hold a public meeting Wednesday morning at the County Board of Supervisors chamber. Bills for the new fee go out in a few months, but the fee is temporary for now. There's talk of making the fee permanent, and Wednesday's meeting will give the public a chance to weigh in.
Some trolley passengers will have to walk a little farther starting on Monday. The Metropolitan Transit System is starting construction work on 3 stations. The Civic Center station will be closed for about 3 months. On Wednesday, the station at 25th and Commercial in Logan Heights will close again for 3 months. A substitute station will be set up a block away. And later this month, the Middletown station will close for about 2 months. MTS will provide a shuttle instead. The closures are part of a renewal project to upgrade stations and tracks to put low-floor trolleys on the blue and orange lines.
The first graduating class at Trade Tech High School in Vista is nervously excited about the future. The charter school serves an economically disadvantaged group of mostly Hispanic and white students, combining college prep courses with on-the-job training in the building, construction, and engineering trades.
From putting the final touches on a house to figuring out how to generate energy using windmill power, Trade Tech's first graduating class won't have to choose between college and work because they're already preparing for both.
I'm pursuing both ways because I do have an internship and I work at American Bobcat.
Dalia San Miguel wants to be the first in her family to graduate from college.
This like future plan that I have for me, I don't think I would have had it if it wasn't for Trade Tech.
She is one of 20 seniors getting ready to graduate next month. San Miguel credits the school's smaller class size, about 18 students for every teacher, for keeping her on track.
I'm much of a slow learner more, and I'll learn things, but mainly when it's one-on-one.
She's even gained a new perspective on what it's like to build a home from scratch.
It's totally different. Like, that's hard work. It's very hard work, but it's very rewarding.
In fact, the construction industry is predicted to be among the top 10 sources of jobs in the near future.
Learning about trades really caught my attention.
Lias Burrafi was one of the first students at Trade Tech High when it opened in Vista in 2008.
We do learn plumbing, electric stuff, carpentry. I want to be an all-around guy.
The school's principal says most of the senior class will be going on to college in the fall, and 5 seniors have been hired by industry partners with support from scholarships.
In this economy, they're going to walk in to a job that pays $14 to $18 an hour because you got to have to be an apprentice, you got to have a job in the field that they choose, have immediate employment at a working wage.
And Trade Tech had the highest API growth of any charter school in California, raising its scores on English, math, and science by 159 points this year. One of the week's biggest headlines was President Obama's declaration of support for same-sex marriage. Joanne is talking about it with her guests over at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
This week, President Obama made the announcement many had been waiting for, his approval of marriage for same-sex couples. Several San Diego politicians were ahead of him on this issue, including Mayor Jerry Sanders and all 4 mayoral candidates. Joining me to talk about reaction from the San Diego LGBT community is Stamp Corbin. He is publisher of LGBT Weekly. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So first of all, your reaction when you first heard this news a few days ago.
Well, you know, I was elated that the president had finally come out in support of same-sex marriage, or marriage equality, as we like to call it. But it was an interesting 36 hours because North Carolina had voted down 61 to 39%, or voted in a marriage ban. And then Colorado was going to pass a marriage equality bill, and rather than have that happen, they just put everything to the floor and said, we're not going to even bring it up for a vote. And so it was a very interesting time. So, you know, the disappointment of North Carolina and Colorado absolutely followed by the president coming out and using the bully pulpit to say that he was for same-sex marriage. So it was I was elated.
So you also have a different connection to this announcement as well. You co-chaired the LGBT Leadership Council during Obama's first campaign. You've talked to the president about this issue. You've been to the White House. So how much difference did it make to you then that he wasn't in favor of same-sex marriage, or at least he didn't come out publicly and say he was?
Well, you know, one of the things about the president is he tells you the truth. Okay, and so when I decided to join the campaign back in 2007, and specifically to work on LGBT issues, he told me the truth. I am not for same-sex marriage. I'm for civil unions. And then, you know, he has done all of these great policies during his presidency, whether it's hospital visitation, whether it's benefits for federal workers, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Matthew Shepard Hate Crimes Act. He's done all of these wonderful things for our community. And then he said he was evolving. That was very frustrating for many members of our community. I wasn't one of those folks who was frustrated by it. I thought, you know, people sometimes have to go on a journey about these issues. I wish they didn't have to, but, you know, being African American, there was a journey that had to happen for me to be able to sit across from you today. So the president, when he said he was evolving, we knew that he wasn't going to evolve to the same place that he was it was going to be a better place.
Do you think this is ultimately going to make a difference in law? Right now, Prop 8, the ban on same-sex marriage, is tied up in the courts. Could this make a difference whether in California or across the rest of the country?
Well, I think that you have to look at the presidency as an institution as well as an individual. And what makes this so historic is for a sitting president to say that he's for marriage equality. That's why they call it the bully pulpit with the president. Those folks who support him may take a step back and say, well, let me look at what I have been thinking. The electorate is split 50-50 at this point. But if you drill down, independents and Democrats support marriage equality much more than, say, Republicans. Republicans is something like 75% against, whereas independents are 57% for, and I think Democrats are about over 60% for marriage equality.
Okay. We'll have to leave it there. We're out of time.
Okay.
But Stan Corbin, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you.
More than 100 members of the greatest generation got a special honor today. The story coming up. Plus, a look at some ambitious plans from the owner of UT San Diego. And what to do with 3 tons of trash. How about making art with an environmental message? We'll show you coming up. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Tonight on KPBS. At 8, PBS's longest-running public affairs series, featuring Washington's top journalists analyzing the week's news, with host Gwen Eiffel. Washington Week. Then at 8:30, conventional newscasts get thrown out as broadcast media and the web unite for a compelling half hour of today's issues on Need to Know. And at 9, shocking accounts of bribery and blackmail threaten to bring down Rupert Murdoch's media empire on Frontline. That's tonight on KPBS.
The American people have named PBS the most trusted source of news and public affairs
for the 8th year in a row.
Trust.
The American people have spoken.
Thank you.
I'm Jeffrey Brown. On the next News Hour, Mark Shields and David Brooks on how President Obama's support for gay marriage will play in the presidential campaign. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
More than 100 World War II veterans flew from San Diego to Washington, D.C. today. KPBS reporter Tom Fudge tells us about the honor flight for a group of war veterans whose numbers are thinning by the day.
This is really about a celebration of everyone that's here and everyone that helps us get here.
When these Navy veterans reflect on their war experiences, they're looking back 67 years. Navy veteran Tom Cosenza served in the Pacific.
I was in Guam, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Moosburg, Germany. We liberated a big prisoner of war camp there.
In S3, which is operations with the Combat Engineer Battalion, building bridges, planting mines, digging up mines.
Digging up mines, dangerous work?
You bet. Yeah, but I'm here.
They're here at Lindbergh Field to catch a flight to Washington, courtesy of the nonprofit group Honor Flight. Dave Smith is chairman of Honor Flight San Diego. He says groups sprang up around the country to help veterans get to Washington to visit the World War II Memorial, which opened in 2004.
I get just so much enjoyment out of finally seeing these guys that about 67 years after the war ended, finally getting a pat on the back and a thank you.
These World War II vets are all over the age of 85, and so some of them are boarding the plane with guardians who can help them out.
Thank you to the airport authorities.
Of course, some people didn't want to reveal their age.
Oh, God, you never ask a woman that. Never.
The first class folks up here first.
Dave Smith says these war veterans, like all others, have suffered emotional stress, and he says Honor Flight can be a way to work the demons out. Cosenza speaks of having to bury the dead.
I was there, and it took me 30 years to forget when I saw it was so horrible. Now I can talk about it.
Tom Fudge reporting. On Sunday, the vets returned to a grand opening of a water cannon salute on the airport runway and Navy and Marine color guard. UT San Diego could get a sister publication soon. Joanna's talking about it with her guest at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
Doug Manchester has made a lot of news himself since buying the UT last year. Take a look at this. He has said he wants to buy the North County Times, build a mega sports complex, develop his land in Mission Valley, and now he may also own the Orange County Register. And besides all this, after announcing its endorsement of Carl DeMaio for mayor, the UT's editor was taped telling Nathan Fletcher of the paper's anybody but Filner attitude. Just what is new owner Papa Doug Manchester up to? Joining me is voiceofsandiego.org CEO Scott Lewis. Thanks for being here, Scott.
Thank you.
Lots to talk about. Okay,
yes.
Let's start with the Orange County Register. Is he or isn't he buying this paper?
I'd bet on it. Yeah, I think that he will. I think that there's some sense to it in the sense that, you know, they both print papers, and printing is the most expensive and distributing is the most expensive part of running a newspaper. So if you can consolidate some of those functions, that would be a good business decision. And then, you know, they could probably combine some editorial focus. There's a lot of San Diego residents who appreciate Los Angeles area sports and things like that. So there will be some interesting consolidations, but also, you know, a growing empire.
Exactly. We've heard already that he's expanding to television news.
Yes.
We see some of that happening in terms of building a studio. Now, in terms of editorial direction with the paper this weekend, was it a surprise when the paper came out and endorsed Carl DeMaio for mayor?
No, it was not a surprise. What was a surprise was that they put it on the front page. So it said Carl DeMaio for mayor, and it wasn't even the front page. It was more important than the front page. It was a wraparound cover.
Can I tell you what I thought when I saw that?
What?
So I get the paper every morning. I thought, oh, Carl DeMaio bought an ad.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought that must have cost so much money. And then I kept reading, oh no, it's an editorial.
That illustrates how powerful it was, because it would have cost a tremendous amount of money. And if you think about it, everybody says, well, what does the newspaper's endorsement matter? Well, it's not just that. This would have been like 300,000 signs overnight arriving on people's front steps. You know, Carl DeMaio for mayor and a reason to do it. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, Doug Manchester, by buying the paper, has now been able to distribute more media than he ever would have done as an individual investor in the political process. It was a very interesting and powerful move. And it came right after another unprecedented thing, which was the release of tapes from Nathan Fletcher's interview to get that endorsement for mayor, and revealed really some very interesting worries at the paper about the brand of the Republican Party.
Let's give people a little bit of background on that. So what happens when you're running for political office? You can sit down with the newspaper's editorial board. They ask you a lot of questions, and they decide who they're going to endorse. And this was taped. There was a 1-hour tape recording. Nathan Fletcher's campaign released it. And on that tape, you have Jeff Light, who's their editor, saying what?
The editor-in-chief was saying, and he was the chief inquisitor about Nathan Fletcher and what he could say to this board that would make them feel good about being Republicans and still supporting him. So basically, they kept saying, you have, by leaving the Republican Party in that big grand show that he did, you have hurt that coalition of people known as the Republican Party who are trying to get power and influence. And so, that makes us mad because we're with them. Basically, and it's one thing for the paper to be conservative, which it always has been, or even for years before the last owners. But it's another thing to actually be part of that coalition of people trying to get power, and that's a much different attitude. And this was the editor-in-chief, the editor of the paper, who was expressing the most concern about this. And I think that what that reflects to me is that continuing discussion about the future of the Republican Party in San Diego, as they try to deal with what is, I think, an existential threat. If he, as Nathan Fletcher, is able to succeed, then he has blazed a path away from the two parties towards success and a new coalition of leaders. And that would be really powerful.
We have not a lot of time left. I just quickly want to touch on these condos, because not only are we seeing him build a media empire, but also develop land.
Yeah, well, the Mission Valley headquarters of the Union Tribune is in a prime spot right next to the freeway. He wants to put a big Times Square type thing up and a bunch of condos. He's a real estate developer at heart. This is a natural investment.
Great. Scott Lewis, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Using trash to make a point about ocean pollution, the story from our culture desk in just a moment. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
time, Antiques Roadshow is in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
The market for Russian paintings has exploded in the past 5 years.
Oh my God, really?
Wow, who knew?
What treasures will our experts discover in the city of lakes? Find out when we visit Minneapolis next time on Antiques Roadshow.
Monday at 8 on KPBS.
The garrulous Mr. Garrow.
We have asked for you.
He provides defense for the accused.
You're a man who'll have others hanged for a reward.
And in the Old Bailey of 18th century England,
Mr. Garrow was playing you like a harpist.
He fights for justice.
Since when have you concerned yourself with what you are allowed to do?
I will have my son.
You twisted your efforts so an innocent man would hang for it.
The series, Garrow's Law.
A new season of Garrow's Law begins Thursday at 10:30, only on KPBS.
The Chula Vista Nature Center relaunched last month as the Living Coast Discovery Center. Its first exhibit is called Washed Ashore, Plastic, Sea Life, and Art. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando gives us a tour of the exhibit with its creator.
Do you know what 3 tons of garbage looks like? It can look like this, or even this. But if you're artist Angela Hazeltine Pozzi, you can turn 3 tons of debris into this.
Henry is becoming our mascot. He's almost becoming our logo of sorts for the Washed Ashore project.
Washed Ashore is a community project Hazeltine Pozzi started in her coastal Oregon town. The nonprofit organization strives to educate and create awareness about plastic pollution through art.
We don't cut up everything into beautiful little tiny pieces where you can't see where it came from. This is the real stuff. This is just the, you can actually tell that that's a bottle.
Or that that's a garbage bin lid.
And it came ashore and I thought, okay, well, there you go. That's got to be a turtle. Most of the stuff that we get off the beach is coming from the middle of the ocean or from overseas. We process it by hosing it down and sorting it and scrubbing it and soaking it and cutting it and drilling it.
Then she turns the trash into beautiful sculptures like this jellyfish made of discarded water bottles.
This is meant to move and it is meant to be interacted in.
But it also has a message.
Sea jellies in the ocean are looking just like plastic bags to turtles, and turtles eat jellyfish.
That message gets through to kids like 9-year-old Megan Pallets.
Yeah, like some leatherback sea turtles that eat jellyfish, and if a plastic bag is floating in the ocean, it also looks a lot like jellyfish and they'll eat it.
The accessibility of the art attracted Dr. Brian Joseph, the executive director of the Living Coast Discovery Center.
I was overwhelmed and touched. It was very understandable by children. It's something that they can touch, everyday objects, colorful things out of their own lives and end up in the environment. And I thought this is a really powerful message for children.
The center's purpose is to connect people to nature and the environment with the hope of encouraging positive change. Washed Ashore directly addresses that message by drawing attention to ocean pollution in a novel way.
When you first look at these, you think these are very beautiful sculptures. And then when you approach them closer and closer, you're filled with horror because they're everyday items that we discard in the environment.
People don't realize how bad it is by just listening to statistics and people talking and seeing charts. And I thought, I need to do something that makes people really not ignore the problem. So make giant animals and they won't ignore it.
In addition to Henry the fish, there were also styrofoam coral reefs, a flip-flop fish, and a fish made of plastic pieces with tooth marks from sea creatures that tried to eat the plastic and most likely died as a result.
Although this is a really small piece, sometimes some people feel it's the most powerful because these are all bite marks by fish and crab in plastic.
Hazeltine Pozzi was an educator for 3 decades before she started researching the impact of plastics on ocean habitats.
Plastic pollution problem in the ocean is huge, and it's a massive problem, and it's affecting every beach in the entire world. And it's basically because humans have created this thing called plastic that lasts forever.
She was confident her clever recycling of trash would appeal to kids, but she wanted to reach an even wider audience.
I don't want to be preaching to the choir. I want to reach people who do litter on the beach.
Because the Washed Ashore exhibit can show them how every action has a tangible result.
Every piece of plastic here in this whole exhibit was once purchased by somebody. And then it got tossed aside. And then it traveled and it landed on the beach. one person at a time decided to pick up one piece of plastic at a time.
The Living Coast Discovery Center plans to use the exhibit to prompt a larger environmental education effort. Because as Hazeltine Potsi says, every piece of plastic tells a story, and it never goes away.
KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando. Washed Ashore runs through September 3rd at the Living Coast Discovery Center in Chula Vista. Tonight in the public square, some responses to the stories we've brought you this week. News of the National Park Service's objections to the Plaza de Panama plan got this response from Peking Duck SD on our website. Is it really that hard to eliminate cars from the square and avoid building an intrusive road and parking garage? Far be it to actually make people do this thing we call walking. Tom Fudge's story about making San Diego's roads safer for bicyclists led Vanessa Homyak to ask on Facebook, why aren't these motorists that plow us down getting something more than a fine? Why aren't motorists that kill cyclists getting jail time for killing these law-abiding riders? And last night's story about rescued beagles being put up for adoption got this comment from April, also on Facebook. These dogs have also grown up in a clinical setting, not treated as pets. I highly doubt they will make good house pets. You can weigh in on the conversation by following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and of course, you can email us. You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website as well, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. You have a great weekend.